So, when you get a new old Jeep, I've already said the first thing you need to check is the brakes, and the first thing you should do is the cooling system. Any part you don't do will bite you later. But there are a couple limits you need to have. Be quiet back there, Michael! I'm making a TV show here! There's a couple of limitations that you need to put on yourself. You need to know, because you're not doing a frame-off restoration. Unless you are, and that's awesome. You need to know how far you want to go and how far you can afford to go. Now, I can afford to rebuild the whole engine, but I have a time crunch, so I'm not doing that. How far I wanted to go, I'm going a little farther because I found a bunch of things wrong. But this is the pile of parts that I bought for this Jeep. And we're going to go through them right now, like one of those cool unboxing videos. Except I'm not going to take them all out of the boxes because they'll get dirty. This is my oil filter. It's a Wix 51085XP. XP is their synthetic version. That takes me to your oil. So there are lots of different oils. In my area, it doesn't get too cold. It does get pretty hot. I use the Rotella T4. I've changed which oil I use in these Jeeps about 6 times based on how much zinc is in the oil and how much calcium is there to support it. There's a few resources I use. Bob the Oil Guy, amazing, incredible oil engineering genius online. So follow that guy for sure. But the Rotella T4 is what I used to use, and now I'm back using it again after switching a bunch of times. Spark plugs, garbage, copper, Champion brand spark plugs. Jeeps just love them. Timing gasket set. This is the front seal for the timing cover, the gasket, and then this is a partial oil pan gasket. I do not use that. I always pull the oil pan down and use that gasket. It seals better, and I do not abide leaks. This is a water pump. Let's unbox it. It's an unboxing video, right? Ooh. Oh. Gasket. If these gaskets have a peel-off layer and a self-adhering, don't use it. Buy a different gasket. I found that those leak 9 times out of 10. So this is a nice looking brand new water pump with a lifetime guarantee. It's not the best brand. It's like the O'Reilly house brand, Murray, but it's really good, and O'Reilly is excellent about their return policies as long as you're honest with them. Like, return bad parts and don't try to rip them off, and that's a good philosophy in general. Now this is your Cloy's timing set. Your timing gears are the heart and soul of your engine. They keep the valves from hitting the pistons. Timing chain, sprocket. People call them gears. Technically they're sprockets. This is the crank sprocket and the cam sprocket. Cam has to turn twice as fast as the crank because it is a 2. There are 2 strokes of the engine for, oh gosh, it's a 4-stroke engine. You get it. Belt, I like to use a more industrial belt, but they didn't have it and it was a special order, so. Heater hoses, radiator hoses, all very obvious. This is the power steering pressure line. These things are prone to leaks, and it's really rusty, so I'm just doing that as a precaution. Air filters, Wix. These are fantastic. People use K&Ns. That's cool and all, but I go in sand, I go in dust. And the K&Ns, watch the Project Farm YouTube video. We'll put a link right here or here. I don't know, I've never done this before. Right here to the Project Farm YouTube video on air filters because they're incredible. This is the best one by far. I was using it before I saw it and I felt super justified. Valve stem seals. I did not buy a whole head gasket set because it comes with a garbage gasket. I'll talk about that later. So these are valve stem seals. I am rebuilding the head. They were all right. They were a little hard. Glad I'm changing them. Another spark plug. Try to get at least good spark plug wires and always use dielectric grease on both sides. That'll keep corrosion out. I do stupid stuff like drive my Jeeps in salt water. So I put dielectric grease in every connector. Felpro makes a pretty good head gasket. This red water passage sealant, it had an extra little line of it, and underneath it said Cummins, or on the Cummins one, underneath it said Felpro. So it's the same. They Did get bought recently and the quality's gone down a little bit, but they're still pretty good. All right, I don't know what this is. Let's find out together. Aw. Do the Davey 504 thing where I threaten you. Sounds like Michael's making good progress on the motorcycle back there.
Yep.
Ah! This is the oil pan gasket. So again, this is like a stainless steel embossed with rubber on both sides. It's reusable and it does not leak. And it comes with little clips to jam your oil pan back in there. The oil pan is really hard to get out of these cars. Usually you have to jack it up, supported by the frame, and undo some of the suspension to get the axle to hang down low enough to get the oil pan out. What are these? Valve cover gaskets. So these are the valve cover bolt seals, and this is the valve cover gasket, just the same as that. They did change this every few years when they changed the cylinder heads to make the exhaust ports smaller and smaller and smaller for emissions reasons. So get the right one for your year. It is beautiful, it's embossed on both sides, and it will not leak. Oh, that's a heavy boy. Harmonic Balancer. So, Harmonic Balancer doesn't have anything to do with the actual balance of your rotating assembly in the engine, but instead, it balances harmonics in your engine. It's two pieces of metal sealed together with a piece of rubber inside, in between them, and it has timing marks on it, but how do I explain this? It absorbs, as your crankshaft is spinning, it's back and forth firing motion on an inline six, 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. So first 3 cylinders, second, first 3 cylinders, second 3 cylinders, first 3, second 3. It creates like a harmonic wave in the crankshaft, and all engines do in some way, and this is a weight separated by rubber, and that absorbs that to keep your engine from exploding. Another one, oh. Empty box. That's the valve cover box. So when I say do the entire cooling system on your Jeep, I mean it. This is the little metal tube that comes off of your water pump, and this little beauty goes to a heater hose, but they rust out pretty badly. I've never found one that was perfect. So despite cooling system maintenance, and the one on this truck, I bought this before I looked at it, it was rusting out from the outside in. So this is a kind of a tricky part to ask a parts store guy for. Can I get the metal tube that comes off the water pump? Can I get the heater outlet? Can I get the metal heater hose? They don't know what to call it. So this is made by Dorman, and this is a Dorman 56398. So again, not sponsored. Dorman makes some great stuff, but they also make some terrible stuff. If they want to pay me, I'll stop talking about the terrible stuff. But there's that. Oh, you guys wanted to see me open the big box. It's like Christmas though, it's gonna be last. Ignition coil. The really good ignition coil for this Jeep, I'm an MSD guy. I ordered the MSD one and it was terrible and it failed, and all the reviews said the same thing. This is just a cheapo Master Pro, you know, parts store one. I wouldn't have even changed it, but the clip was broken, so there's that. Yeah. Let's get these little guys. More radiator hose. Ooh. Motor flush. Motor Medic. There was a little bit of a copyright issue because the Motor Medics are actually a radio show that's really good, but they are allowing these guys to use that. They're just the coolest guys. Motor flush. I really should have done this before I tore it apart. I wish I would have. There would have been less cleaning. This stuff will clean your engine out, but follow the directions exactly. Whoa. I think this might be the Thermostat Housing. Yep. Came with the plug. I don't need that. It's cheap, it's pot metal, it only cost a couple bucks, and it's just flat and nice and worth the price. it's what, 14 bucks or something. It's not worth machining down your old one, especially since this actually hangs down lower than the machined part. I can't even use my belt sander. So this is a good buy. I always change it, and I've only had one that really didn't need it, and I saved the old one for an emergency. And I have had an emergency where I had one of these actually break off and I needed to replace it. This is a coolant temp sender because this Jeep had a code and a history of the temperature gauge jumping around. So I went ahead and grabbed that. It's cheap insurance. On the older versions of this Jeep, it's a little tiny one in the back and a big one in the front. And the tiny one in the back did the gauge, the big one in the front told the computer how much fuel to put in, but on the newer computers it does both things. My kids are back there right now, and she's like, I know. CCV, so a PCV system, positive crankcase ventilation, is a wonderful invention. And people take the smog stuff off their antique cars. I don't. I restore it because I'm an insane person, and Jeeps don't have that. They have a crankcase vent. So this has a big hole here and a big hole here. You don't need to see it, just take my word for it. There are two versions of this, the low one that's molded in and one that sits up about that high. That one's in Grand Cherokees, they have a higher hood. This is, Dorman makes both of these, but they didn't have it in stock, so I bought a standard ignition BF, like best friend 37 for the return. But the actual vent is the Dorman 47057, and that guy has a big hole here and a tiny orifice here. That connects to your vacuum system. If you start having massive oil consumption, I bet you that guy's plugged. So that goes to a vacuum line, and Dorman actually makes the little rubber hoses here and here that connect it to the intake manifold. But that keeps your oil system clean and good and crankcase gases out. And this is the one that you might want to put a little oil catch can on. If this isn't good enough, you'll see oil accumulating on your air filter because it's going the wrong way through the return, which is that first one I showed you. Crankcase ventilation system, talk about. Let's see. Yeah, see, they've kind of done away with that peel and stick gasket, thank goodness. That thing was really junk. Distributor cap, you don't need to see that. It's the thing that goes and the wires connect to it. Ah, here we go, clutch fan. You can't really tell if these are good or not by hand. You can definitely tell if they're all the way bad because you'll just be able to spin it or stop the fan with your hand. Disclaimer, don't stick your hand in a fan. You'll cut your fingers off, dummy. I'm sorry I called you dummy, I can't take that back now. So this is a clutch fan that has essentially a wax in it, and there's a bimetal spring that heats up and changes the pressure, and it's hard to turn now, but it gets really hard the hotter it gets, so the fan is blowing more. These are cool. People don't like them because they don't understand them. Like old hot rod guys, oh, put a flex fan. Flex fans kill horsepower. Watch the Engine Masters episode on Motor Trend. Clutch fans are great. These things, you change from a solid fan or a flex fan to this, you'll add 6 horsepower to your engine. That's the cheapest horsepower you will ever add. I love clutch fans. All right, we're almost down to the fancy stuff. I asked my wife what color she wanted her valve cover. I've never painted an engine yellow, or part of an engine yellow. I have a fantasy about doing an engine that's white on white on white on white on white, just to show that there's no leaks, seeps, or drips. Because again, I don't abide them. I hate them. So I'm excited. This isn't quite the yellow she wanted, but this was the only yellow engine enamel they had in stock at arrival. This is a thermostat. Thermostat opens and closes. This is a radiator cap. Radiator cap's way more important than people think. Change it every 30,000 miles when you do your coolant flush. Grommets, CCV grommets, those valves I was showing you earlier, those guys won't come out of the grommets, they'll shatter. The new grommets, the new ones, they're better, they're stronger, they'll last longer. There's 2 of those because there's 2 vents. All right, So the Cherokee and the Grand Cherokee both have oil filter adapters. The oil filter on the older versions comes straight off the engine, but there's stuff in the way on these, so they have a 90-degree adapter. That has 3 O-rings in it. There are kits you can buy with all 3, or if you buy a full engine gasket kit, it comes with all 3. I've never had one where all the O-rings were correct, but the big one, and this is the one that usually leaks, this is a hard one. If you go to an auto parts store and say, I need the oil filter adapter gasket, they're not good. It's just gonna be difficult. There's great part guys that can look it right up. My guy at My O'Reilly knew right what I was talking about. He found it in a second. They had it in stock. This is a Felpro 70301. And this big gasket's the same on almost every configuration, but the small gaskets can be had in most of your metric or standard universal kits, the cheap ones. So that is an important thing I always change because that's a good spot for leaks. This is the thermostat. This goes in your upper radiator hose. This part's full of wax again, sits inside your engine, a cylinder head on this car. As it gets hot, it opens up. As it gets cold, it shrinks. Maybe we'll do a video where I use hot water and tongs and show you this thing opening and closing, hot and cold water. It's really cool. I mean, it opens and closes a lot. So it restricts most or all of your flow depending on the design of the engine and where the recirculation happens. But people think buying a lower temperature thermostat will help them stop overheating. That is a myth. If you have a 195-degree thermostat, which is the right one for this engine, which will make it run a little warmer and burn the fuel more efficiently with fewer emissions, that is the best thing for this engine. If you start overheating and you buy a 180, why do you think that an engine running hotter than it's already supposed to will be fixed by a different thermostat that will be already all the way open? That's silly. The only way that will fix it is if your thermostat was the actual problem. You've got other problems, probably your radiator, your water pump, or something worse. What's this? This is your distributor rotor. It spins around, distributes the spark. Freeze plugs. Michael.
Yes, sir.
Other Michael.
Yes.
Cameraman Manderson.
Yes.
Anders. Michael Anders. Local with a Q. My main man. You already filled me talking about the freeze plugs and which ones are right and which ones are wrong. Maybe we cut in a tiny little portion of that right here. If you do take your intake and exhaust manifold off, there's 5 freeze plugs on the side here. There's one in the back of the head too, but you can't really get at that. Change those freeze plugs, and this is really important. Here's the one they sell you. Here's the one you need. The one you need slightly taller. It's gonna fit tighter. But look at the difference in depth between those two. That is garbage. That is good. So this is a Dorman part 555069-B. B gone from me. Foul part. This is a Dorman part 555-045B. That's the one you want. It's the one for the head and it's the one for all the block. Put a little sealant on there, knock it in there. That will never, ever leak. I buy these by the box because I do a lot of Jeep engines. The Jeep has 7 of these, one in the back of the block, one in the back of the cylinder head, and 5 on the side of the engine. Do not get the ones that they give you. Get the ones that I just told you in that little clip. This is a motor mount. You heard me right. I didn't say engine mount. Motor comes from modus. It's Latin. It means movement. Anything that creates rotating movement is a motor. An engine is a type of motor. So if you get nitpicky about that, go ahead and be an idiot in the comments. I hope you do. Comment if you think I shouldn't be saying motor. Jeep inline 6 is in a line and it's narrow. A V8's like this. So this one's like this. It's torquey. So as you're moving, the engine's going vroom, vroom. You ever seen a car rock when they rev the engine, like with a lot of horsepower? Well, this one's tall and the motor mount's way down here. So this one tends to break, and mine did. So you can get polyurethane ones, but make sure to put a polyurethane transmission mount too. They all need to match. Otherwise, you'll just rip the hardest one. This is the intake and exhaust manifold gasket. So a cylinder head that has intake on one side and exhaust on the other is called crossflow. It's cool and efficient, but this is a sweet old tractor engine basically. It's not, it was never in a tractor, but AMC introduced this early on in the early 60s and it went through 2004 in some cars. Why? Because it's an excellent, excellent engine, but both the exhaust and intake are on the same side. So you've got air coming in and then air going out. Yep. My Postal Jeep over there, I could stick its cylinder head. It's from 1972 on this 1999 Jeep. And I would just need to drill out the cylinder head bolts. Here's the fun. What do we have here? This is, Murray, the radiator. These radiators are all right. Uh-oh. I might have some little, nope, they're there. But they come with brackets to hold the air conditioning condenser on, and they are way too long. So either cut them and drill a new hole, or put a couple little bends in them. They really like that. If you've got a vise and a little hammer, don't worry about heat. They're real thin, just tap, tap, tap. I've never seen a factory radiator in one of these things before, because they're all old. But this one had one, and I'm pretty impressed at how much better it is than these aftermarket ones. And I may either try to use the whole top off of that, or actually go to the dealership and buy one. I don't have a good Dodge dealership around here. I won't rip on the one that I hate, because my garage is a place of positivity. It's a place of positivity, right, Michael?
Sure.
That's right. Last piece. This is the exhaust manifold. My exhaust manifold is cracked to heck. They're stainless and hard to weld, and if you do weld them, they'll crack again. But these ones that you buy aftermarket actually have gone down in price quite a lot. Ooh, look at that. Gaskets and such. Nice. Look at this guy. Get out of the bag. Probably shouldn't rip this because I might not use it. It has expansion tubes. Those expansion tubes, as it gets hot and the metal expands, these contract, and as it cools off, they expand again. That prevents cracking here, which is a big, big problem. But they also crack here, and there's no expansion tubes there. They're great, but these will still crack again, but they have a lifetime warranty, so crack away! I have a buddy who just did a new engine in his Jeep. He bought a whole Jeep to get the engine, and he said he has an uncracked, already aftermarket exhaust that I can have. So if it's right, I'll be using that and getting my money back on this. So I know it's pretty long, but that was my Jeep parts unboxing video. I hope it was educational and fun to watch. What do they say? Edutainment. And I hope you fix your Jeep. Do me a big favor though. Have a great day.
Blooper.
Were you filming?
Yeah.
I forgot there was a second workstation behind me. I'm so glad you were filming, because a couple of times I've been like, gosh darn it, that would have been perfect on film, like when I dropped that engine. Did I tell you I dropped the engine? I'm working on this dumb engine, and I dropped it. It just shifted on the stand, I went, boom, boom, and I was like,